We are honored to be here today to talk about an important issue, voting rights, and why it's relevant to standing up and taking action as a leader. So we have a special guest with us today, Kevin Reese, which of Until We Are All Free, who will give us some insights related to voting, why it matters from the past, the present to today. So just for a brief introduction, this is a part of our work of Leaders Journey 365. Our goal is to inspire and equip community members to embark on this journey of leadership development. We provide community organizing and leadership development training. So if we think about this, our goal is with the 365 to have civic engagement year round, 365 days a year, 24/7. In addition, we engage the whole family from children to parents to our community elders through our intergenerational approach of community building, because our goal is to have that cascading effect. As community members lead change, not only around one issue, not only around one challenge, but year round, issue by issue, to organize and lead for change. So to introduce Brother Kevin, he is a key leader in the Twin Cities community, serving and utilizing his platform to have effective change manifest in meaningful ways. After his encounter with the judicial system, his eyes were open to the inadequacies and injustice that permeate the system. As a result, his life's mission is to rectify the detrimental effects of mass incarceration. One of the main ways he accomplishes this by serving as the director and founder of Until We Are All Free, which is a human rights organization led by formerly incarcerated criminal justice experts, with a focus on building capital, resources, and support to provide pathways to civic and economic liberation for individuals disenfranchised by mass incarceration. Gifted with the talents, and let's make sure we support as well. We have a poet, a writer, a creative, a community organizer. The list goes on and on. So we want to make sure that we're supporting Brother Kevin as an influential author and writer. He's been the recipient of the 2018 AWP Intro Journals Project for Poetry, published in the Hayden Ferry Review. Additionally, his writing talents have also been featured in Emily Baxter's nationally acclaimed book, We Are All Criminals. And he maintains his own column in our own Minnesota Best, the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder. So ultimately, his writing centralizes on the topics of humanity, organizing, transformative movements, and ancestral visionary poetry. So that bit of that Afrofuturism to understand who we were, where we're headed, and how we get there. But you came here today not for introductions, not to hear about us and our backgrounds. You came to get an understanding of what we can do about voting. And so without further ado, let's jump right in. Our topic for today is 5 myth busters. So starting with the first myth, my vote doesn't matter. What do you say about that piece?
I don't got one, right? So if none of us have a vote and nobody vote, right, that looks like us or represents our self-interest, what do we have, right? We have a society that none of our self-interest was spoken about, right? We have a society where there was no representation for us at the table. So there's an active plot in America to take our vote away. Take Black men, faces that look like me, people that's like me. They're going to cast us into second-class citizens, taking our vote away. So those who have a vote, I want you to know that's why it matters. If it didn't matter when you were released from prison, they will let you have your vote back, but they're very intentional. And it's 2021, and we still don't have our vote back, right? So we need to pay attention to where they put, because they put a lot of dollars behind making sure I don't have a vote. So your vote absolutely matters. And if you don't think it matters, then get closer to community. Get closer to the people that you're actually voting for. And you can transform thinking you're voting for the system versus you're voting for actual people who is a part of your community and represent your self-interest. Your vote absolutely matters.
Even if I accept that message, Brother Kevin, it tends to be that maybe I only vote for the presidential election. So is it a myth then that the national election is the only thing that matters and local elections don't matter overall anyway?
I'm gonna tell you what, it's gonna take longer for the president to get to your house from DC than your local official, right? That's in your own community, in your own backyard. It's gonna take longer for you to hear from the president than it's gonna take from you to hear from your local representatives. And I think one of the things that's really powerful, we need to begin to stop. Well, we need to begin to see ourselves as a part of the people who is representing us. So historically, when we think of the like vote and the people that's representing the system, we think of those people, right? Because we've never had no stake and no buy-in in the system, right? And being able to be a decision maker and influence policies and legislation. We've never been there, but guess what? It is 2021. We having a whole entire generation of amazing change makers and trailblazers who hold offices in your local cities. So I'm gonna tell you, no matter where you at, starting here locally, no matter where you at, it's gonna take longer for the president to get to you than your local official. So no, the national election is, they put a lot of money behind the national election. So that's why you see it so much. They turn it into this national thing. It's almost a holiday, right? You get to seeing these flyers everywhere. You're seeing commercials everywhere. It's a bunch of pageantry, right? But your local election is really important. It's determining what the conditions of the school your kids is going to, is determining the actual road that you're driving down. Anybody know what it feels like to drive over a pothole in your community, right? There's a pothole on your block, and every day you drive down it, you done tore your axle, you done bust your tire, right? You done had a flat tire, right? Your local election actually gets you closer to getting that pothole fixed on your street than the president.
You heard it here. The local matters. It matters in your day-to-day life. It matters in the lives of your children. So make sure that on November 2nd, that we have you involved in your local elections as well. So here it is. You already alluded to it, but let's unpack it a little bit, because we know, for instance, in states like Alabama, if you are a felon, it's a permanent scarlet letter then that restricts your access for a lifetime ban to the ballot box. So here it is. Is it fact, fiction? You cannot vote as a felon. What exactly do we need to know? Is it a blanket statement, or is it a more nuanced approach?
Back to why your local election matters, because it differs in every state. You have some states that they're actually letting people vote in prison out on the East Coast in Connecticut or something like that, right? But here in the state of Minnesota, you cannot vote if you are on probation or parole or any type of supervision from the state, which means you had a felon, they released you, and now you have to serve the rest of the time that you have to serve in community, and you can't vote until you're done with that. You have other states where it is a blanket statement. You get a felony, you would never be able to vote ever again. So yes, if you have a felony, there's going to be barriers for you to vote. Either you won't never be able to vote again, or you will have to jump through the hoops of getting off probation or parole in order to be able to vote. And we all know what it feels like when our folks re-enter back into society, the barriers that's in front of them having to navigate through their parole time. So a person ain't even thinking about how I get to my vote. They need to get a job. They need to find a place to stay. They need to try to settle themselves. And so many people don't get a chance to make it back to that, because every time you get a violation and you go back on a violation, guess what? Your right to vote is pushed back. Every day you got, your right to vote got pushed back a little bit more, all the way to the point where those who's been impacted by having a felon is completely just disengaged, just completely disengaged from the political process. Because what the political process has told you is this process is for you, right? We made this process to patrol your body. You don't take part in this process. So yes, me having a felon, me right now, I'm a father, I'm a brother, I'm an uncle, I'm all of the things that Dr. Tyner just said. I care deeply about the issues that's going on in my community. Actually, I'm probably can be one of the most trusted voters in community, because I will be informed. I will have an informed vote. I don't have a vote because I have this thing that they gave me. I ain't give it to myself either. They gave me this thing that they called a felony. And they say, if you don't have that, you don't have a voice on election day.
So here it is. We know that it varies state by state. So you have an invitation now, not just to understand what is happening in your state, but to help to formulate some of the policies. And Minnesota has come up as a perennial issue, meaning time and time again, this idea on who should be able to vote, whether they're incarcerated, whether they're at home. Let's just be clear on this. Someone who's on terms of probation and parole, they're taxpayers, they're involved civically, they're a part of their community, but yet we have not been able to move the type of legislation that we need to restore the vote in some tangible ways. And last but not least, we have to point this out. Based upon the research, we know that voting is a pro-social activity. So we want to make sure that we are encouraging ways for people as a part of their pathway of homecoming and engaging back home, that they have a process around those pro-social activities that connect them with their communities. That's safe communities, safe families, and strength and power. So just something to think about as you hear those words, restore the vote, you learn more about the campaign. What does it really mean and how can you be more involved? So the next one is everyone has an equal right to vote, Brother Kevin. The reality of it is after the Voting Rights Act, Dr. King March, Congressman John Lewis March, they made it across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. We all watched Selma. Why are we even having this discussion?
Because it was a lie. It's a lie if we think that that work that those folks did got us to the end of something. It was only the beginning of something. And it was ask the immigrants in this country right now, do they have a vote? Ask all of the folks who have been impacted by the justice system, do they have a right to vote? No, America still do not want an equal, even playing field for everyone to have the right to vote. You have some places in the city where they create so many barriers for folks who don't have a felon to vote. Ask the elderly how easy it is for them to go cast their vote. Don't nobody come up to their door and make it convenient and reliable for them. Hey, just cast your vote. No, there is huge barriers for folks in this country to vote. Even the electoral, the way it was set up, it was actually set up for wealthy white people who can cast their vote comfortably, right? Who they know where their polling stations is at. They don't have none of these barriers, right? They're first-class citizens on all of the boxes. When they say check, the big white boxes always right there. You ain't never got to look too hard to find a white box on a job application or a survey or any of that. The white Caucasian box is always right there, proudly present. So no, that work did not end with the civil rights movement. I was born in the 80s. My whole entire life, I seen people still fighting for their right to vote, right? My whole entire life, when I think of the movement, it's always been one of the threads. It's always been some population of people that has to continue to fight for citizenship and their right to have a voice in this country. The spirit of that has not died because this country don't want it to.
As we think about this, can you give us a sense then, Brother Kevin, who are some of those heroes and sheroes that inspired you around this ongoing long-term commitment to access to the ballot box? Can you give us a little sense of who's inspired you?
Yes, I would start with some of the men that I was incarcerated with. So I spent 15 years incarcerated. And when we were going down the box of the stuff that got us here and the stuff that was keeping us here, one of the things that we would get to was because we don't have a right to vote and decide, because we were saying, who made these laws? Who made these laws that said that they can interpret this language over our body? We didn't make it. It was the people that was in these decision halls that made it. How did they get there? They were elected, right? And we like, wow, that's super important. The vote matters. So I want to give a shout out first to the generation of incarcerated men here in Minnesota that I had the privilege and the honor to stand with and serve with and be held in space with. So they would be my first heroes for sure. I would also say my mentor and colleague, Vina K. Vina was someone who gave me this lens on voting around that the outcome mattered, right? But also the process was just important because throughout the process, you're being politically informed. You have an opportunity to actually meet the candidates and understand their background and where they stand in your community. And you actually have a chance to have your self-interest on the table, and you can leave your vote in the ballot knowing that you had an informed vote. And if the person that you didn't vote for is in office, at least you know what you're fighting. At least you know the issues that you had and why you casted a vote. And this is why I think it's going to kind of go into the next myth, but you will know at least what you are fighting. So whoever this person is in office, you can continue to hold them accountable and hold their feet to the fire, because you could be saying, I actually didn't vote for you. I didn't vote for you because I had these issues. And guess what? You are in office. Either you're going to fix these issues or you're going to continue to perpetuate these issues. And these issues is impacting community in this way, and that way, and this way, and that way. So she gave me this great lens around the importance of the vote, that the vote was not just this end thing that you do. Voila, I voted, all things, freedom has come. No, Voting is actually a process that you must be engaged in all the way through 24/7, 365, right? It is actually a way to be in community by having a vote and using your vote. Those are just a few people that I would say.
So I have a follow-up question for you. You talked about the communities that you built, been a part of, and benefited from, and this system of reciprocity. But take me back to the younger brother, Kevin. Did you learn some of these things in school? What was the connection between, we had an opportunity to talk about even Fannie Lou Hamer, Shirley Chisholm. Did you learn these things in school, or where did you get this information? Can you set some context, maybe a call to action for parents and teachers and policymakers?
For sure. No, Fannie Lou Hamer or Shirley Chisholm was never taught in none of my history classes. I got the pleasure and the honor to learn these ancestors while I was in prison, when I went on my own leadership journey of reading. And I was like, wow, unbought and unbossed Shirley Chisholm. I was like, wow, there is a Black woman who says she's unbought and unbossed. Um, I would say that the importance of the education starting in our homes, right? Because the American education system is not in their self-interest to teach our children about these folks. It's not in their self-interest to continue to like give space for a generation of Black and brown and poor people, that they actually have a pathway through liberation through the American electoral system, right? So no, I never learned that in school. So I would urge all of our parents to get our kids involved as early as possible. Let them understand the power of their vote as early as possible. And back to what I just said, voting is not just a thing that you do, it is a lifestyle. It is a way in which you are in community, understanding that you have, the vote is, I'm gonna have a say one day, but the duty is to talk every day and to work every day and to do it every day. And your vote is your thing that you get to say, I told you what I told you, and you get the vote. So I think it's important that our children know that really early on. I grew up in poverty. Even voting wasn't taught in my house. That wasn't taught. My grandma didn't talk to us about voting. I ain't never see my grandma vote, or none of the people in my family vote. We was like poor. We was that poor that we didn't even feel connected to any of that. We'll watch the national election on the TV and try to see who's gonna be the next president, and then have my grandma in here waiting on Roosevelt again, right? Shout out to Langston Hughes for that poem. It's The Poet Self and Me, right? In the 1920s, where I think it's Danny Glover, he does a great job. If you didn't Google that, Waiting on Roosevelt, it's a Langston Hughes poem. Danny Glover has some audio on it. It's an amazing poem, super powerful. When he's talking about they was waiting on Roosevelt. They was saying, hey, mama, we ain't got no food. We hungry, it's all outdoors. Waiting on Roosevelt, son. Waiting on Roosevelt, right? So I kind of grew up like that. My grandma was waiting on Bill Clinton, right? I grew up in the 90s. Bill Clinton was gonna make all these things better for Black folks, and so that was not nothing that I was actually taught in my home as well. The system happened to me. I went to prison and I had to learn it there, because it was my only, when I was looking at ways to liberation and looking at pathways to liberation, these were the ancestors who was right on the road saying, come on, son. But I wasn't introduced to them in community. I definitely wasn't introduced to them in school. There was no place for me to learn it. I had to learn it in a cell. So we want to prevent our kids from having to learn it in a cell, because when you get on the pathway to liberation, you're going to run across all our ancestors. They still running. Shout out to the book, I Am Free, that you just showed me from Fannie Lou Hamer, Until I Am Free, right? They're still running. Their words still ring true. They are still leading. So when we get on the pathway to liberation, we're going to run into our ancestors. They still on there, right? But our kids should be born on a pathway to liberation, and it should be taught in the home. We can't trust the American education system to give our kids this information. It goes against their self-interest.
Well, since you brought it up, I have to share a couple excerpts from the book, Until I Am Free. So this has been my read for this week, to finish this book up, to get a lot of encouragement from those ancestors. Because I know we use it as a hashtag, busy making our ancestors proud. But once again, as you pointed out, Brother Kevin, creating a lifestyle on being able to draw upon that ancestral strength, the connections, the history, the past, but also building on the present for the future. So here it is. This is a couple quotes from Fannie Lou Hamer that really stood out to me. The first one is related to this sense of, do we have to be qualified to have this conversation? And what does that mean? Because oftentimes we look at someone had the credentials, What socioeconomic level are they at? What do they look like? What do they have on? And here she goes. She says, don't worry about the qualifications, she told a packed audience in 1969, because just like they learned it, you can too. So getting the invitation to learn more about that process of civic engagement in real time. And notice here the second quote that I want to share. She addressed this issue again in 1971 while speaking at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund Institute in New York City. But you see now, baby, whether you have a PhD, a DD, or no D, we're in this bag together. And whether you're from Morehouse or no house, we're still in this bag together. How do you respond to those quotes?
Shout out to the poet. We all poets. Morehouse or no house, we are still in this bag together. I would just reiterate it, right? Back to the ancestors. When I was thinking of, okay, what is a prayer that I would say every day that will continue to ground me and give space for others to join me and me to join others, right? Until we are free. I'm wrong sleeve. Until we are free, right? Until I am free. Our ancestors are still teaching, is still leading. So when I hear those words, I actually hear hip hop. She was rapping in the 60s, right? So to all the rappers know, Fannie Lou Hamer was talking it before you was talking it. And what she was saying was some real gangster stuff.
Yes.
Because she had so many more odds stacked against her, is what she was when she was saying that. I hear spirit, I hear vision, I hear leadership, I hear myself. It actually scares me because in 2021, it's still true, right? It's still true. And between 1969, I think you said the first one was, and 2021, there's been so many generations and so many people who have still fought and died for the movement, for our liberation. So we sit here in 2021, I've signed up for it too, right? Part of the same movement in my body. I still feel the same hope that she feels, the same fear that she feels. That's really, really, really powerful. I would urge everyone to take a moment and think about what that means. That in 1969, she was saying it's going to take all of us, right? And we were like, yeah, true. And it's 2021, guess what? It's going to still take all of us. And what is it going to take for all of us to do the thing? Because the thing still have not been done. Get into your circles of influence, and all of us can begin with your house. All of us first start with you and all your own personality, because we all got 5 of them, right? If you ain't crazy in 2021, go talk to somebody, right? So first, all of us starts with you. All of us starts in your home. All of us starts with your circle of influence and the people that you know and the people that you have a chance to impact, right? For us all to know, it's going to take all of us to get out of this bag.
I think that's a perfect bridge to one of the things that you've introduced in the past to audiences all across the nation, this idea of relational organizing. Can you tell us more? What does it look like and how can it relate to voting and getting involved?
So yeah, relational organizing in a nutshell is what I was talking about with the vote. Like, it's organizing through and beyond conversations, through and beyond projects. We were talking a little bit earlier how the nonprofit industrial complex is a mother in 2021. And a lot of those exchanges through the nonprofits is very transactional, which means tell us your story. Tell me the worst day of your life, right? So I'm going to write this grant and we're going to get some resources to just tell more of your story, really, right? Because it ain't going to be enough resources to actually take you out of the situation that you may be in. We maybe can compensate you a little bit, but these resources won't necessarily change your conditions, right? Relational organizing is looking at interactions with each other through and beyond projects. Relational organizing means that before I try to move you in one direction or another, first you must be seen. You must be heard. There's not a lot of space right now. If we can like blow a big horn, a whistle, North Minneapolis and all the youth, all the young kids, the people that they're saying they're afraid of right now, because right now in Minneapolis has been a hellish year, right? All of them, the ones that they're all afraid of, let's blow the horn, let's bring them all up to Broadway. Everybody come up to Broadway, right? And if we had a chance to ask them why, first they're gonna be like, Ain't nobody asked me why, right? And then if we had a chance to ask them, okay, what can we give or what could we do that would make this different? They would be like, oh, they would have a bunch of remarkable answers, right? A lot of the answers to our problems is lying in the places in which we like to throw away, right? Let's call them all up and we say, hey, brothers, what need to happen? What we need to do to like shift this and change this? So many of them is gonna have brilliant answers and brilliant responses. There will be so much healing that goes on. If you ask them why, the why might be, man, I'm hurt, I'm traumatized, right? So relational organizing gives space to folks why. And then your questions is going to be actually moving towards letting their why inform how you help them versus you just coming to them, hey, I got these canned goods, man. Let me give y'all some canned goods. I'm a nonprofit here. Take this. This was help. Relational organizing means that you actually see the person, you care deeply about this person, and you care enough about this person that you wish to stay connected with them through and beyond this conversation. And when we start to do that, we are able to actually build with our loved ones, because relational organizing means you may vote for somebody different than me, right? But because we had a commitment to having a relationship through and beyond this encounter, whether my person that I voted for is voted in, or the person that you're voted for that's voted in, now I have a relationship with you, and together we can still hold this person accountable, right? So now I can talk to you about, hey, this candidate that you voted for, you know, I got these issues. And if you care about me, you're gonna see the issue. You're gonna say, wow, I voted for this person who's actually actively doing something to hurt someone that I care about, that I'm in relation with. So you're more likely to be like, oh no, we gotta hold this person accountable for this thing because it's impactful in community. So through relational organizing, I think this is how we get to all of us in this bag together, where it's not, okay, everything must happen right now. And if it don't happen right now, this person go this way, that person go that way. Relational organizing is a commitment to the movement. And the movement means that it will continue to move. And I move through movement by being a relational organizer. I care more about the people than any of this stuff they talking about, any of these projects or campaigns. I actually care about the people that I'm doing it with most, because guess what? These projects and these campaigns are just on paper, but these people live next door to me. I got to see these people at the grocery store. These are the people that go to school with my kids. These are the people that's at the park. These are the people, is the community.
So that's a lot to unpack. That's a lot to remind us of the power of we're stronger together than we are apart. And you also gave us a challenge that I oftentimes give to my students. It's easy to talk about all the different areas where we diverge or we have conflict, but to align together and try to figure out where we can converge on some of these issues and create practical solutions in meaningful ways that are people-centered, that's where the work happens.
Absolutely.
That's where the sustainable solutions emerge. So thank you for reminding us and giving us a process on how to do this. So this takes us to our fifth myth. And you've articulated it in so many different ways. And I love the examples that you're giving. Let us hear more. So this one is, my job is done when I cast my vote. That's over. I did my job. What else is there to do?
Trick of the devil. Whoever told you that, you go back and tell them, you lied to me. Because if you think your job is done after you cast your vote, then you're not in community, right? It's not good enough to say, hey, I voted, the work is done. There's a lot of the elected officials can't move if community don't move them. And that's actually the way that the system works, right? You actually need to hold them accountable for whatever issue or policy or thing that you want to see change. You must hold them accountable and stay engaged throughout the whole entire process. And voting is just one thing, but voting must be a lifestyle. I don't want an uninformed voter. So if you just say, on this day, I ain't been engaged in none of the political process, but I got my vote though, and on voting day, I'm gonna just go down there and check a box. It's actually detrimental to community as well too. So if you are an informed voter, means on the front end, you have been engaged in the candidates and what's happening in the community, and you understand what your vote means. And if you understand what your vote means on election day, you cast your vote. And then you turn right back around to community. Now it's like, okay, we voted for this person is in office. Now, how do we make sure that that office actually bring the whatever needs to happen, the light, the resources, the energy, the healing, whatever needs to happen to community. So if you don't stay engaged, then you're actually letting them off the hook, right? They would love for us to be a bunch of misinformed voters. So therefore they can put they'll throw a fake black face up on you in a minute, man. If you just go up in there and just, I'm gonna vote for the black person, right? They'll throw a fake black person up in there for you. They'll throw the liberal white people, they'll throw a good liberal white person in there playing a saxophone. They'll be break dancing and all of that. You don't even know who you're voting for. So if you understand who you're voting for, you have been engaged pre-election and post-election, you must turn back to the community and make sure that we hold them accountable, because they're not going to do it on their own. They're not.
So help us out here. I'm listening in. You had me convinced on the relational organizing. You had me convinced on how to focus on people and start asking some of the right questions. But still yet, how can I get engaged? What are those initial steps? How do I get started on this journey? This is all new to me, Brother Kevin, because I know some of the people are experiencing that or they're tuned in. What's that kind of ABC? Where do I get started?
First, thank you for joining this live. This was a great first step for you to get started, to sit here for this hour and listen to Dr. Tyner and I talk about the power to vote. The next thing, ask yourself, what do I care about, right? What do I care about? I'm a community member. What are the things that's most near and dear to me, the things that I care about? And then you go ask yourself, who are the people that have the power to sway one way or the other around the things that I care about? And then you will realize how close they are. Then you get in community and you ask the question, how can we hold this person accountable for this thing that they is doing or this thing that they are not doing, right? It's relational organizing. Call a friend. Call your friend who you know who is most politically engaged, right? The person, even if they're not that much politically engaged, the one who still would talk politics with you. Everybody got a friend, an uncle, or somebody at the barbecue who would sit there and talk about the government, how these people ain't this. Call crazy Unc, who you thought was crazy. Call him. And you say, Unc, man, I've been thinking about my vote lately. I bet you he got a whole tool for you. So dig into your treasure chest of people that's around you who actually do care about these issues. And you call them and you say, hey, can we have a one-to-one? A one-to-one is an intentional time that you set aside to meet with another person and for y'all to listen, have a conversation, which means listen and talk, right? And for y'all to be able to say, these are the places that we agree on, these are the places that we don't, and these are the action steps that we can take from this conversation to do something about it. You can start with one person by having a relational organizing one-to-one with them. And I agree with this, you agree with that, leave with action steps, execute the action steps. Guess what? You are part of the movement now. Now you moving. Now you do it again. And then you do it again. And you will realize how close the actual elected officials is. These people are not deities. They're not dropped into the Capitol straight from heaven. No, these folks are voted in, right? These folks actually live in community, right? Their addresses is actually whatever city they are in. They actually live in community. So I would tell everyone was to start with yourself, to ask yourself what you care about. Go find someone that you trust that's close to you and use relational organizing for it to be your entry point. Have a one-to-one with this person, have a discussion, leave with action steps, execute the action steps. Now you are a part of the movement.
So here it is, part of the movement and moving. We see once again, that's why we call the work that we're doing Leaders Journey 365, because it's that ongoing commitment of moving, not just casting the vote, being involved, helping to make sure that you're at the people's house for your voice to be heard at the Capitol as well. That's your house. So it means we want to see you present and being a part of the process as well. But Brother Kevin, we didn't touch on one topic. What if you don't see the candidate you're looking for? What if you don't see the issues that you're looking for? What if you feel compelled to do a whole lot of moving like Shirley Chisholm? What if you feel compelled to run for office? Is that even an option? I don't know. I don't see it. How do I do this? What do I need to think
Please
about?
do. What I would say is, first level, please do. Please do. Guess what? I just said everyone that's in office was not dropped into that office. They were voted in, and they were voted in by people that live next door to you, that people that surround you. And guess what? Um, we can't have a society like a democratic society without people. So if you're sitting there and you have a whole lot of movement that's going in you and it's erupting in you and you feel that way, you are actually being called. I want you to receive it. You are actually being called to leadership. And there's space for you. Because guess what? You have amazing relational organizers like me. If you come to talk to me and say, hey, brother Kevin, I'm ready to vote, I'm going to line up everybody I know, right? I'm going to get the calling people on your behalf, and you'll be surprised how many people in community is going to turn to you and say, thank God you're running. Thank God I have someone that looks like me, that feels like me, that I feel like I have a connection to, that's running for office, right? You don't need to be, that's the one thing, it's not a check the box. You don't need to be a white man to run for office, right? You don't need to have all of these PhDs. You don't got to go to school and have all of this. It doesn't take all of that to run for office. All it takes is, if you have that feeling that Dr. Tyner just said, I got a whole lot of movement in me and you want to move, you are being called to leadership. And you start as well with one person. Go start with one person, have a one-to-one with them, express this idea, have a discussion, leave with an action plan, execute the action plan, and watch the energy from the universe come back. Because if it's on your spirit, it means you have been called. I've never had the idea to run for office, right? I've had the idea to build this organization, do this. So for our folks that do have that on their spirit, lean into listening to our ancestors, lean into your spiritual self, and know what's really happening is you are being called. And the bridge is not that far. The bridge starts with one person. Have a conversation with one person and leave with action steps, and you will be on your way. It's folks in community that's looking for someone that looks like them, that feels like them, that they can get behind and make their vote count. And our children need to see it. Like, even if you're a young person, you have seen people that look like you that have ran for office and won, right? So it is super possible. You know that it is possible. Now it's your duty to do it for the children that's behind you. Calling forth all of our folks. Their leadership journey will lead them to the people's house. Call them forward, and just bring one person with you.
So here it is. We know, based upon the research, especially related to leadership roles, but in particular related to running for office, what Brother Kevin told us exactly aligns. The reality of it is most people will not even consider it until they're invited. What you just got from Brother Kevin was an invitation. Not that, why not me? It's the yes you invitation he just gave you to explore what those opportunities are. If you feel that movement within you to bring forth the issues, to help take a stand for the community and get more involved about the issues that you're passionate about. So we have now a blueprint. We have a blueprint for action for everyone. Those beginners that are just trying to figure out how to get involved. For those who are more experienced, get someone else involved. And for all of us to be involved at that level of 365. And what does that mean? So, Brother Kevin, as we go through this piece, we went through dispelling many of these myths. You started telling us about relational organizing. Give us just some concrete steps that you would want us to take on the organizing side around the issues that we're passionate about. And in addition to that, we know your work is related to criminal justice. What are some of the policy efforts that we should be exploring? What should we be thinking about so we can be a part of this movement building for until we are all free?
Thank you for the question. First, I would start with where we start. I've been saying it, I'm gonna come back to it. Start with one person. Have a one-to-one with one person, and find space to say, this is my why. What's your why? And allow y'all whys to like bounce off each other. Leave that conversation with that one person with an action plan and execute that action plan. You will be so surprised how much just that energy of movement will continue to like push you forward. So I would say, start with one person. someone that you care about, someone that you're in a relationship with, someone that you want to have a relationship with through and beyond that conversation. Start with that person. Call them your movement buddy. I would urge everyone to get you a movement buddy. If you're afraid, get you a movement buddy. Start there. The next thing, at Until We Are All Free, one of the things that for sure Until We Are All Free is championing right now is the felony murder conviction, right? Felony murder is this law that says that if you are with someone and a felony is taking place, someone loses their life, everybody there going to jail. Everybody there going to jail for murder as well, too. And this law was designed actually to cast a wide net in our community for our young folks, to send all of our young folks to jail for murder if one of these instances was to happen in our community. And we know that, unfortunately, these type of things is happening every day. I went to prison for felony murder. I got so many friends of mine who's in prison for felony murder. These are triggers they didn't pull. These are crimes they didn't commit, but just in proximity by being there, right? They in prison, they went to jail. So the felony, I would ask everyone to look us up. The felony murder law review is on Facebook. Find them on Facebook. Join us, support us, sign the petition. We are actually creating a task force, a felony murder task force that is working on getting the felony murder law changed, starting here in Minnesota. We're going to change it across the country because we have young Black and brown and poor bodies around the country who's in prison for felony murder. But starting here in Minnesota, Until We Are All Free is helping champion that work. There's so many brothers that deserve an opportunity to be free, who's been in prison since they were teenagers. They're in their mid-30s now. And I'm dedicated to seeing each and every last one of them home. What was the third part of your question?
The third part was, how do we get involved? How can we learn more about the work that you're doing? So you gave us one practical example, but if we want to get involved, want to learn more, how can folks get connected to Until We Are All Free?
For sure. Find us on our website at uwaaf.com. We are on Facebook is Until We Are All Free. We are on Instagram at Until We Are All Free. You can always send me over an email, kevin@uwaaf.com. Hit me up, and guess what? I'm gonna tell you, let's start one. I'm down to have a one-to-one with anybody. Anybody. I'm telling you, it's an open invitation. Hit me up on uwaaf.com. Hit us up on Until We Are All Free on Facebook. Hit us up on Until We Are All Free on Instagram, or you can email me directly. I'm down to have a one-to-one with everybody. And that's the way that folks can get connected to us. And come see us. We're local. We're right here in the city. Yeah.
Also tell us about your most recent writing endeavors. We know you threw a little poetry at us and got us more engaged. Tell us more about why you write, how to connect to writing, why this matters as it relates to movement building.
Get your copy of my book, Luckily Fish Don't Need Raincoats. This is my debut collection of poetry that I wrote. So movement, art, is how I understand the movement. It's how I'm able to say, let's have a one-to-one, because it's nothing like listening to your favorite artist. You're having a one-to-one conversation with your favorite artist, or reading your favorite book from one of your favorite authors. That's a one-to-one conversation. 3 trillion people can read the book, but when you read it, you're having a one-to-one with that person. So for me, art was always this connective tissue through movement for me. It allowed me to actually opened up my vessel to love. It gave me this bigger capacity to love through art, because art is going to outlive us all. I know as humans, I know we wish we was immortal, but art will outlive us all. So I have this deep appreciation for art, which leaves me with this deep appreciation for my scope on relational organizing, because relational organizing is going to outlive us all too, right? The energy that you put forth as a relational organizer by being really, shout out to Maya Angelou, like people ain't gonna remember everything you said, but they're gonna remember the way that you made them feel, right? That is vibrating through the world. That will outlive you as well too. People will take that forth. So please, you can buy the book directly from me. We are on, you can hit me up. I can get you the link. You can buy it from Amazon. We're on Barnes and Noble. Stay tuned on our page. I will be having another reading in a couple of weeks in South Minneapolis. Please support the book. This book is dedicated to my grandmother. When I was writing poetry, and I realized there was this old Black lady that had something to say. I'm like, who is this old Black lady that keeps showing up in my poems? Why am I talking like this? Why I'm talking like a 65-year-old Black lady from Alabama? Guess what? Because I've been relationally organized and impacted by an old Black lady from Alabama, my grandma. So please go out and support these poems. And my scope on movement comes from because I love art, right? And it allows me to know that the movement will outlive us all. So please go out, support, and get the book.
Okay, so you have it here. Support, get the book, combining the arts, the humanities to help formulate and get us an understanding of what movement building looks like. So make sure that you support, get more involved. Now, I have my fingers crossed. I have a hope right now. I'm going to do just a couple last minute announcements and share some resources, but fingers crossed. And we got to hope maybe we can hear a little bit from the book, Brother Kevin. Maybe you'll bring a little bit of a reading to us. So here it is. Election day, November 2nd. Make sure that you are ready. Make sure you're registered to vote. Make sure you're a part of this process of this movement building. We want to see you there. We want to see you showing up. We want to see you raising your voice. Here it is. Here's your moment. In addition, we just want to make sure that we close out with the Leaders Journey 365 commitment. One is related to developing your leadership skills. It's an ongoing commitment of that journey and not a destination of learning and growing. Also, we want you to learn about your candidates. That relationship doesn't just stop when you cast your vote. Be involved with the elected officials as well, locally and nationally. Learn who they are. Make sure that you have those one-on-ones with them in their office as well. And of course, cast your vote. Also, find an issue to work on year-round. You can hear from Brother Kevin if you know anything about my background. We both have told you a lot about criminal justice and education. Maybe it's healthcare for you, whatever it may be. Make sure that you're involved year-round on being knowledgeable about the issues and being prepared. I just was teaching a student about this yesterday. The importance of knowing how to prepare for a window of opportunity, that you have some of the solutions, as Brother Kevin talked about, gathering all the young people together on Broadway. Let people share their stories and be a part of bringing forth practical and tangible solutions. And a part of the people is you. So be prepared to bring forth some of those solutions when a window of opportunity opens. We oftentimes don't talk about this, but this is a critical piece. Make sure that you're supporting UJAMA, cooperative economics. We cannot look at voting alone as a tool or civic engagement as a tool, as a standalone. All of these pieces are also deeply economic. So we want to make sure that you're understanding the local economy of your neighborhood, that you're building it, you're transforming it, and helping to make sure that it works for the people and that it's by the people as well. So one immediate way you can do that is making sure that you're supporting your locally owned minority businesses that represent your community. In addition, volunteer when you see a need. Get started where you are. Your time is an energy. Brother Kevin kept saying energy and currency. Get involved. And he's pointing until we are all free needs you. So get involved. Get involved in real time. And of course, you heard it from Brother Kevin on multiple occasions. So this is just a summation of it. Teach the children about how to serve and lead in their community. We do that by modeling the way. We do that by teaching about the Shirley Chisholms, the Fannie Lou Hamers, and being and embodying that power from our ancestors as well to lead change. We want to make sure that we are finding those ways to make sure that we're modeling the way, because we only can use the influence that we have by giving it out, meaning modeling it in our day-to-day lifestyle. So join us at Leaders Journey 365 for additional information. Make sure you're following until we are all free. But more importantly, let's close out with a word from Brother Kevin.
Absolutely. So this poem that I'm going to talk today is titled, "The Universe Will Not Be Mocked." The shards of glass that has become my wishes force my toes to mimic steel. A herd of unfortunates has been a barber chair to my beliefs. Who can justify the mass herding of God's children into steel boxes, or the mass production of steel cannons that is at the ready of every coward? Who can eat veal with the profiteers who profit from the tears of hungry puppies? The surplus from years of exploitation will be the firewood that burns down happy land. Everyone existing can feel it. It's coming. So as a blessing I hold, I'll send you with the bag of apple seeds and a screwdriver. You do with it what you please. Who can call themselves a pimp and treat the earth like a working girl? What man cannot appreciate a working girl who works because of the lack of working man? Oh, you want to make things better? How about you open up every cell in the world and let them sell the world? Then to boot, pay reparations, pay the workers more, pay the mothers more, pay the artists more. How could you not love the people that invented jazz? Question, when was the last time you did something for the first time and the first time you did something for the last? So all noble men, you measure your worlds and include everything in it. So when you make decisions, you include everything in it. The summon benum vibrates my spirit, dashing with the color of Sunday mornings. Defiant is the happiness in the tune. Contagious is the rhythm of your favorite tune. And tastes as sweet as sugar cubes in grandma's coffee. Now, draw a line in the blood and let our yesterdays decide our fate. Didn't I warn you? The universe will not be mocked.
We gotta get right, sir. We thank you, Brother Kevin. You gave us that food for thought. And more importantly, the compelling call to action. So we want to make sure that we get your book. We want to make sure that we stay connected. And we want to make sure that we're a part of this movement building until we are all free. So we hope that you'll join us the next time we're having these, not just conversations, but movement building strategy sessions on how we can all use that relational organizing to connect and lift our voices for justice. So thank you. We appreciate you. Share the link with a friend and let's keep that movement going.
All right. Blessings.